Think about you standing next to someone else and saying, I have this dream of making 100K months. And they say, no, there's not enough space. You're gonna fail. You're gonna fuck up. How would that feel in your body? You probably feel embarrassed. You probably would feel shame. You would probably feel anxiety or doubt, and you would probably not feel inspired or trust yourself to take action. That's 90+% of the entire world. That's the inner narrative that other people are dealing with. And when you decide you want to change, that voice gets really loud and gets even more aggressive sometimes. Welcome to the Jamie C Show. Today we're talking all about the early stages of entrepreneurship and why you should never judge or get nervous or fear seeing an entrepreneur maybe 10 years down their journey, and what it's really like to be able to understand the grit, the realness of entrepreneurship, if we will. I'm going to be taking you through a story of, I actually don't think I've really told anyone this story, so you get to be first, so come on in. I think it's really common to see somebody where they're at in a journey of entrepreneurship, and you see them and they've got X amount of followers and you're maybe just starting out your journey. And what generally tends to happen in that situation is you're like, oh, it's either number one, inspirational to some, or you may feel this like pit of like, ugh, that's never possible for me. Or maybe they had it easy, or maybe they had a story that, I don't know, maybe that's just not possible for me. And I really want to be as honest and transparent about entrepreneurship as possible, because I think that it's honestly one of the best things that you could ever do, one of the most beautiful gifts that you could ever give yourself. And honestly, we're just wired different. So if you're on your entrepreneurial journey, it's just like we're like a little crazy cool though. It's kind of fun. So I think in the very beginning stages of entrepreneurship, you kind of know, you just feel like this pull, this ache, this like kind of gripping of like, I want to do something with my life, or I have this dream, or I have this goal or desire. I want to dive in. I want to go. I want to do it. And then what ends up happening is either one, you're starting to consume what all these other people are doing, and it's really hard to lock in on your mission. And I think that's one of the things when I look back at my journey, that's the one thing that I really have stayed true to this whole entire time in the last 11 years of entrepreneurship is I feel like I'm one of those horses with the blinders on the side. That's literally me. When people are like, what are you doing? Where you don't get kind of frazzled or intimidated by other people, I go, I lock in and I create more than I consume. So I'm going to encourage you, number one, to create. You are in your most magnetic energy when you're creating. And I think that oftentimes we start to compare ourselves or start to feel like it's not possible for me, or almost this consumption where it almost feels like, is there space for me? Is there this feeling of, am I good enough? Are my gifts even good enough? And I think that number one, stay true to who you are. And if there's this feeling in your heart that you really, really, really want to share, please don't give up on that. It's not an accident that you were put in this position. It's not an accident that you have this desire. So in the very early stages of entrepreneurship, honestly, I'm going to be super transparent. Well, I really never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think until it was something that it kind of spoke to me later in life. I was just this kind of person who was just doing their job and doing the things. And then after high school, I remember I wanted to do hair. I always kind of felt this pull towards doing hair. And then I remember my mom saying, like, that's just not what smart women do. You don't do hair. You go to college. You do all the things, right? You go get your degrees and you go and you do the job. And that's just what you do. But honestly, I think a part of me would have died if I followed that. And I'm really, really glad that I put up a stink about it. And I was like, no, we're going to hair school and that's what we're doing. So I went to hair school. And even though a lot of people thought that that was not the right route to go, it was the thing that felt the best for me. It's really what I wanted to do. So I didn't go to the traditional college. I was more in the creative space and service providing. And I worked at a company that was actually, I think they had owned two places at that time when I started working for them. And it was a family-owned business. And I'll never forget this. One of the owners, there was multiple owners, and they were actually driving in their like, I don't even know if it was a Volvo or a Mustang. But anyways, top was down. And I remember him pulling up. And he was listening to one of those like self-help tapes of how to be a better business owner. And then I would walk in and I remember them always like bickering and like going on about all of these other things. And I just go, oh my God, I'm never doing this. I'm never opening my own business. Like that seems like the worst thing on the planet. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to go home. Right. what I started to find out was I would do my job and I enjoyed my job and I was really good at my job, and I would go home and then I would do my thing. But the truth of the matter was is I was still broke. I, no matter what, just didn't really understand how to start making more revenue or how to be financially free. And so, my husband, Nick, he was working 2 jobs. He was an electrician working for his dad, and he was actually working part-time at our like local Catholic school, cleaning floors. And so I would work all day, he would work all day and night, and we still would end up just having panic attacks at night, being like, when are we not going to be stressed about money? When are we not going to be stressed about it? And, my bank account was always negative. And I remember family members being like, Jamie, we're going to go on this trip and we're going to do these things. And I would just politely decline because I was like, there's no fucking way that I could afford this. I can barely afford living. I can barely afford anything else. And I just remember thinking like, I guess this is just how it's going to be. Mind you, I had no idea that I could actually become the author of my life and make a change. I had no idea that you could be financially free. And I know for sure I did not want to be a business owner because I saw what it was like to be a business owner. I was like, no, not signing up for that. And I couldn't see myself being anything other than a hairstylist at the time. And mind you, this is when Instagram like wasn't a thing yet. It wasn't around, okay? So I had no idea that there was things such as opening your own small space or working and renting a chair and running your own business under someone else's space. And then when Instagram came, I'll never forget the feeling of being like, oh my God, there's so much else out there. It's kind of like when you're raised in a specific kind of household and then you go to a friend's house and you're like, whoa, you had a completely different upbringing than I did. And you start to realize that there's so much opportunity. And I remember just like laying in bed at night being like, Nick, like I think I might want to do something else. But there was really nothing moving me towards that. There was nothing that was like, now's the time, until I gave birth to my daughter. And then the second I held that little baby in my arms, I was like, oh, that's it. I'm no longer going to allow my life to be what it is. I know that there's more possibility out there. I see others showing me what is possible, and my whole body is lighting up around it. So I think Charlotte was probably like 3 months old at the time. And I said to Nick, I want to go out on my own. So the opportunity that this looked like was you're going to go rent a chair and you're going to go find a place to work at. So while I'm doing highlights and doing all this stuff at my job, I would go in the break room and I would look on like Craigslist of like, what other places can I work at? So I landed on this spot and I remember like, I think that's an opportunity. I think I'm going to do that. And I remember showing Nick, and then we would like we'd like drive and like creep by and like look in the windows and be like, okay, I think I'm going to do it. It's like a small boutique salon, very much not my style, but I'm like, is this cool? This is different. I'm going to do it. I remember thinking, all right, I need to figure out how to transition out of this job that I've had for almost a decade and move into having my own business. And the only way that I could facilitate an understanding around that was you need to have clients, because if I wasn't working on clients, I wasn't making money. Okay. So mind you, I didn't really understand the business side of anything, but I just knew I would make it work. And I remember I remember trying so hard to figure out how am I going to get all of this information from my clients. Now, fun fact is I was actually working with other people. So some of my clients were like shared clients, like they would get their haircuts with somebody else and then I would do the color. And then I had clients where I would just have them and I would do their cut and their color. So I decided to only look into the system, like our client care system, for the clients that I had, right? That were not collaborating with any other artists. And I would just be like, they'll figure it out. I'm just going to try to like sneakily write down some phone numbers so I can try to let them know that I'm going to be moving. And I got a few phone numbers down until the boss found out. And the boss found out, and oh my God, shit hit the fan. I mean, ooh, they found out, and then they locked me out of the computer. And I was like, they know. And I was like, I felt like I was doing everything that I could to make sure that I wasn't kind of moving into the space of like taking anyone's clients. I was like, these ones are mine. It's fine. But from a business perspective, I understand that they came to the salon and it wasn't really my job to get their numbers. But I did anyway because I was, trying to make it work. So anyways, they found out, they locked me out of the computer. And then they basically came up to me and they had said, hey, we know that you're trying to leave. We're going to actually open up a space for you. And I was like, open up a space for me. What the hell does that? Mind you, I'm one of their top performers in the salon. So I think what they're trying to figure out is like, how can we get you to stay? And I was like, I don't really think I want to do that. So I gave them my 2 weeks and I said, hey, I'm going to leave in 2 weeks. I'm not contacting anybody. Don't worry about a thing. And I go about my business. I give them the letter. They're good. So now I go home on a Saturday. It's Tuesday. I'm about to go in on a work to Wednesday. And one of the bosses calls me. And I'm like, this is very strange. They don't normally call me on my phone. So he calls me and he's like, hey, I don't want you to ever come back. We'll mail you your stuff. And those 2 weeks that you planned on staying, we're giving all of your clients to all the other stylists here at the salon. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And at this point, I'm like trying to think about how can I beg him to not have this outcome, but it's the outcome that is going to happen. There's no way around it. I'm kicked out. Mind you, at that time when he called, I had a negative bank account and I had to pay for my first month's rent at my new place. And I'm like, where the hell am I getting my money from? I'm like, oh my God, no. And it was one of those moments where I could feel every cell of my body start to just collapse. And it was this moment of like, what did I just do to my family? What did I do? I should have just stayed. I should have listened to everybody else. Everyone was telling me not to do it and I did it. I called my father. And mind you, it was about a year prior to this that my brother had passed away. And I called my dad and I'm hysterical. I mean, one of those things where you're like, the snot is dripping out of your nose, hyperventilating. And I'm calling him. And I said, Dad, I don't know what to do. And the amount of shame I felt, I'm like, I'm a full ass grown adult calling my dad for help. What? And I knew if I couldn't get help from him, I would have found out a way. I was very used to selling my belongings to make ends meet and to try to pay my bills. And I knew that I would have found a way regardless. But he said, here is what you need. Pay me back immediately. And it was just enough to pay for my first month's rent and some of the gear that I needed, some capes and some towels and some shampoo. And I just felt such embarrassment. Like I felt so small. Also, it was one of those things where it's like, well, you got to buck up. Like there was no bigger fire that is lit when you're like, you got no dollars and you got a baby. And I mean, Charlotte's now 4 months old and I just got kicked out of my job. I have no money. And here I am just trying to figure it out. So I start working and mind you, those clients that I tried to contact, those other clients that had me as their stylist, that salon owner had actually told the front desk woman to call every single one of my clients that I'd ever encountered and tell them I decided to be a stay-at-home mom so that they wouldn't be able to contact me, so they would think that I was no longer an option, and so they would stay at the salon. And also almost a decade of relationships with a whole group of people that had come to my wedding, had come to my baby shower. They were now talking shit about me behind my back, were really hoping that I would fail. Really, really hoping I would fail. And I think feeling that sense of loss and that feeling of like, I don't feel like I have anyone in my corner except for Nick. And I have to provide for a baby, so we're just gonna have to do whatever it takes. And that's just what it's gonna be. So I start working and I start to, this is when Instagram's just about to kick off. I vividly remember it was right around the time when like Khloe Kardashian debuted her like famous ombre, and then every hairstylist is like trying to figure out how to do an ombre because we were never traditionally trained in them. But I remember that was right around the time when I had to go out on my own. It was 2013. And basically what ended up happening is the salon that I started working for, I started taking pictures of my work and doing all these things. And I grew a clientele on Instagram in less than 6 months. And I like can't even believe that saying it. Like the hustle and grind that had to happen. So while in that 6-month period, the place that I'm working at is also known for doing bridal hair. So they have kind of this small boutique salon, and they also have this kind of like traveling hair thing that they do for weddings, right? Mind you, I was not great at updos, but bet your bottom dollar I figured out how to do an updo so that I could present myself to this woman and say, hey, can I work on your traveling team as well? So here I am learning how to do updos. I finally got like accepted to go in to do the updos. So I'm traveling 4:30, 3:30 in the morning to travel out of town to do updos. And then also go back in and do hair all day long to try to make ends meet. And then at night, I actually learned how to bead and sew hair pieces, like bridal hair pieces. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to offer them to the brides, whenever they come and do their trials. I actually started an Etsy shop called Blush and Birch. And I bartered with my sister, who was a photographer. And I said, hey, Linz, what do you think about getting a whole bunch of these people and like we'll find some wedding dresses, I'll curl their hair, I'll do their makeup, and we'll do a whole shoot. And I basically had a whole shoot with all these people in wedding dresses. Oh my God, all the clips and all the things. And I just couldn't even believe the amount of creativity that was put under pressure. Like how did I even learn how to do these things? So Charlotte, my daughter, is sleeping at night. I'm sewing all of these things. I'm putting them on Blush and Birch. I'm connecting with influencers at the time, the bloggers. I'm reaching out to every blogger. Hey, are you getting married? Like, would you want to wear one of my bridal pieces? And then, I just remember at a time where I was like, wow, I'm not broke anymore. I think I did it. I think I'm okay. And so at this point, I'm fully booked out. People are buying my bridal pieces on Blush and Birch. I'm shipping things out at night. I'm, connecting with bloggers, connecting all these people. And I'll never forget someone that was close to me was like, oh, so what are you doing tomorrow? I was like, oh, I gotta travel out to, drive an hour at like 3:30 in the morning to go do bridal hair. She's like, oh yeah, like how much do you make for that? I was like, oh, I'll leave with like $400 for the whole day. She goes, who the hell makes $400 a day? That's so much money. And I remember being like, huh, I think I'm going to start keeping this stuff to myself. I think I just need to make sure that I'm really mindful of who I have in my space because I'm starting to realize that under pressure, I'm really scrappy and I can make things work and also really enjoying myself. And also, like, I think there's some untapped potential here. Fast forward to today, the company in 12 weeks, I think, brought in over $1 million in revenue and 2,289 new clients. And my brain can't even comprehend the version of me. Whew. What? Like, it's just insane. It's insane to think about the moment you're like, I'm going to make it work. And you do. And you just don't stop. And I think that the moment you start to surround yourself with other people who show you what's possible and other people who don't dim your light, it's like just unreal. So wherever you're at in your journey, just don't give up. You're just going to have to keep going, okay? Because the younger version of you is going to be so fucking proud when you do. When you're starting to take action towards the things that you desire, doubt is going to be the number one thing that you're going to start facing. It's really, really common for more increased anxiety, more increased doubt, fear, limiting beliefs, even your body responding, almost like this tightening in your throat or procrastination or all of kind of these feelings of it's not possible, there's not enough space. And I just need you to remember that that is the defense mechanism in your mind, keeping you exactly as you are. That's the subconscious, which is running 95% of your life. Its main job is to keep you who you are in this exact moment. And it doesn't care if you're broke. It doesn't care if you're struggling. It doesn't care if you're depressed. It doesn't care what your desires are. It will constantly remind you that whatever your desires are of financial freedom, of growth, of a beautiful life that you actually want for yourself is the thing that you don't actually want. So there's going to be a part of you that needs to be so aware of this feeling that's pushing you back and how to bypass that. Honestly, I think they should be teaching it in school. I'm like, how are we like in our 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, just finding this out? That we have to do a lot of awareness work. You have to become wildly aware. That's going to be your first step. You're going to have to become aware that a lot of the things that come up are not true. All of the fear that comes up is not true. All of the doubt of not having space, that you're not good enough, that you're not smart enough, you're not qualified enough is not true. And you're going to have to challenge it. So what I want you to do moving forward is actually consider that your subconscious mind is somebody that you love. Instead of being angry at it for trying to hold you back, instead of saying, I wish it was different, or being just frustrated about it, I want you to consider self-compassion the key to ease. And what I mean by this is when you think about your subconscious mind as either a younger version of yourself, or in my case, what I was utilizing it as in the very beginning was my subconscious mind is my daughter. And if my daughter was scared, or my daughter was saying, oh, I don't feel good enough, or I don't feel like there's enough space, how would I communicate with her? What would I say to her? How would I approach that with her? I would say, baby, I love you. You're safe. Everything is okay. It's okay if you mess up. It's okay if you make a mistake. It's okay if you don't get it right the first time. If you fall down and you get back up and you learn. And a lot of times when you start to hear that voice come up, or those feelings come up, imagine how much better it's going to feel when you start to approach that with self-compassion. Actually, think about it like this. Think about you standing next to someone else and saying, I have this dream of making 100K months. And they say, no, there's not enough space. You're going to fail. You're going to fuck up. You're not going to do great. What the hell are you doing? Who are you to do that? How would that feel in your body? That would most likely feel probably pretty restricting. You probably feel embarrassed. You probably would feel shame. You would probably feel anxiety or doubt, and you would probably not feel inspired or trust yourself to take action. And you probably would not want to be around that person anymore. That's 90+% of the entire world. That's the inner narrative that our people are dealing with. And when you decide you want to change, that voice gets really loud and gets even more aggressive sometimes. So just know that there's nothing wrong with you when that voice comes up. Now, I want you to imagine that voice popping up and you saying, hey, you know what? It's okay. It's all right. But I want you to imagine, instead of that person saying it's not going to be okay, it's not going to be good for you, you're going to fail, I want you to imagine that being your child. I want you to imagine that being someone you love, or a small, younger version of you. Imagine that this child is scared of getting it wrong, is scared of failing, is scared of being seen and messing up. And what would you say to them? You would say, I love you. You're doing great. Come on, let's go. We're going to take action. It's all good. We're going to be brave. No matter what happens, I got your back. How would you feel taking action then? How would you feel taking action when you know that you have your own back? That no matter what, anything that anyone says to you online, any judgment, any projections that people put onto you, you got you. Because self-judgment, self-criticism, that's the number one dysregulation factor for your body. And when you're taking brave action and you really need to dive in, you're going to have to love on yourself, and you're going to have to gentle parent the shit out of yourself, honestly, like more than you think. You're going to have to learn how to have some nervous system balancing tools to care for yourself. And more importantly, not only just taking care of yourself, but your environment is more important than ever. You can no longer accept conversations with people who don't believe in you. You can no longer share things with people or ask them, hey, what would you do in this situation, if they've never opened up a business before? If they've never been in your situation before, if they haven't already walked the path before. So please, for the love of everything holy, if you have big dreams, big goals, desires, don't share them with people who don't have that same belief in you and who have not walked the path. That's why community is so important, and self-compassion. So as you're headed on this journey, just know, please gentle parent yourself. Please love on yourself. And if you have this dream, it's not an accident. It's not a mistake. And no matter what has happened in your past, if it didn't work out then and you still have the dream and desire, it's probably meant to happen again. Because I'll tell you, if it didn't happen in the past and it didn't work out then, you needed to evolve to this version of you now so that you could do it from this space and do it in a way that feels really good and aligned. So I'm cheering you on. I love you. I'm really, really, really proud of you. And please don't give up. We need your magic more than ever. Okay, I love you.